That is some wild horseshit.
And we should find the person that's been in the most judicial meetings. And they should
just not. I have the funniest meetings. I have two.
Yeah.
It'll be a 9-part series.
Everybody was like, "Oh boy, that's what those two are up to."
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode, what is it, Nash? Episode 3.
It's 3, I guess.
We are at episode 3 here. It's amazing how time flies.
It's been so long.
I'm an idiot.
I feel so old.
Yeah. Okay, so hello, everybody. So what we wanted to do for episode 3, as you probably seen in the title, is we wanted to have an entire episode about shunning. The previous episodes that we did were focused on activism and also kind of a higher level like of activism. So this episode, we wanted to kind of do a basic episode about shunning. And especially for individuals that are maybe Jehovah's Witnesses right now, or if they don't know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses. You know, what happens when an individual gets shunned? What does it look like? People have heard lots of stories about, that shunning doesn't actually take place. It's not as extreme as you think. We wanted to answer that in this episode. So it's like a basic episode. What is shunning all about? And in the Jehovah's Witness religion, it's disfellowshipping. That's the word they use. So, you can think excommunicating or whatever, but in the Jehovah's Witness organization, it's shunning. So we obviously got Nash, co-host here. Hello, Nash.
How's it going?
What is up? You're looking good today.
Oh, yeah.
Got that shirt unbuttoned.
I put a lot of work into this to show my cross off, because I'm very Christian.
Oh, wow. You got the coffee cup?
I got a different one.
Oh, you got a different one? Oh, I can't read it. What does it say?
Too bright, eh?
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway. It says best mom ever.
Best mom ever. You are the best mom ever. Okay, and then we have Kellan, Eckstein.
It's
Hello,
Kelly.
Kellan. Yes.
It sounded like you said that as a joke.
No, I'm an idiot with names. I'm so terrible.
Nash was right. You're funny.
Yeah. Yeah, you found that hilarious, did you, eh?
He's straight from Germany, yeah.
Kellan
Eckstein.
Anyway, him and we're just meeting for the first time here. So I've heard a lot about you, actually. Nash has talked a lot about you. You've got a lot of experience on this topic as well. So why don't you take it away, Kellan? Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, and talk a little bit about, or a lot if you want, about shunning and how it's affected you.
Thanks for having me on. I was excited to come on. It's kind of funny because there's a lot of EXJW, a fair bit of channels and stuff, and it's kind of that same old is my story different, or what do I have to add to the conversation? But I kind of always was in a funny place because my family are all witnesses, very, I'll say, high ranking, but I mean they're all very serious about being Jehovah's Witnesses. Lots of elders, lots of pioneers, lots of people doing as much as they can, in that organization. And I was a late child. I was 15, 16 years apart from my brother and sister. And so it's just kind of funny because I grew up, and if anyone knows my family, we're big talkers, and we also pretty sarcastic, snappy people at times to talk to about whatever. And so that sarcasm really, I think, kind of, bled in at an early age. So I kind of always had a bit of an irreverent, I love joking about everything. If you know me, you know that about me. And it was hard not to grow up and joke about witness stuff. And I was always in a weird place because, it really bothered me because when I was in the organization, people kind of always looked at me like, yeah, that guy doesn't care about anything Jehovah's Witness related. And I super believed it. I was like all in, you know?
So you're kind of sarcastic and joking all the time, but really deep down, you believed it.
Oh,
Yeah,
I believed it.
I don't think anybody really took you seriously, like your brother, right,
Yeah.
and sister that were really in. But so they discounted the fact that you really did believe it. I think that happens. It's more common than we think.
Yeah, for sure. And so like I always felt like one rung down in the hierarchy of the, you know, just the general. So, and one thing that's funny with growing up a Jehovah's Witness, it's like there is a hierarchy, and it's like a 2-class system to me, where it's like either you're doing lots or you have those people who aren't doing a lot, and we're all supposed to be friends. We're all supposed to be looking out for each other. But I was kind of caught in the middle, where I was spending time with people down here. And then when I would kind of bump up with my family and the people who are doing good, then it was kind of like, they kind of be like, oh, you're hanging out with them. Should you be hanging out with them? And it's like, where's the line? Like what it's like there's no rules, but there's definite rules. Like how many book studies have they been to? You know, like it was a weird. So I just always felt this struggle to know where I fit in, because I didn't really want to do a lot.
When it comes to association, the witnesses are so fanatical about it. Like, not only do they not want you to associate with anybody that's in the world, but even if there's bad association inside the congregation, you're even pressured about that. Hey.
Yeah. It's weird. You know, I'll try to not go off on lots of tangents as I do. But from an early age, I was just talking to I met someone yesterday. It was my son's birthday yesterday. I had a big party.
Nice.
So it's fun. He's really into Harry Potter, because he didn't get to watch those.
Yeah,
because of all that bad wizard stuff.
Sorcery.
So anyways, but there was an old family member. Anyways, to go into too deep details just for his sake, but he left a while ago. I didn't know, and it was just interesting. So we kind of got to rehash things yesterday. But one of the things I said when I was young, I remember going to the park, like before they shun us. You know, it's really like you're brought up to shun worldly people, right? And I remember going to the park when I was a kid, and my parents, I would go with other witnesses, and when worldly kids would show up, they had to go home. And I remember going home to my parents and being like, I don't feel okay with that. Like, I'm supposed to go. And I mean, I was pretty young, and I was just like, I got to go knock on their doors. I see these kids in school, but if it's after 4:00, like, no go. And my parents were just like, well, if you don't think that's bad, like that's fine. And it's funny, it was like that was kind of the first step to kind of pushing me out, where they were like, yeah, that makes sense, Kellan, do what you think's right there. But I was going against the trend of all the other family rules with my friends. So it's the first thing where I was just like, something's not right here.
You know, that association thing is a big deal. And a lot of, you know, if we want to do this episode, even for individuals that aren't familiar with witnesses, that there's so much pressure there to not have anything to do with non-witnesses, you know, and even your family there. It sounds like, even though, you know, they were kind of saying, do what you want, sounds like it's a little bit of a passive aggressive, you know, do what you want, but you're going to have to face the consequences.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if it's because I was a late child, but I definitely got more of the grandparent experience than the parent experience. My parents had relaxed a lot, I know, from the way they raised my brother and sister. And you know what? Like they're still in, but a lot of credit, like, you know, they always tried to be reasonable, you know, like, even though they were in. But I mean, like, I always saw that behind things, where it was like, you know, just trying to be what makes sense naturally, which is pretty devoid in that organization. But it definitely I took a lot of those points. And so as I grew up, it was just always kind of like, do I go with my gut or not? But yeah, so the shunning thing, to jump back to that, like I got DF, like disfellowship twice. And the first time, like, it was a real blow. And it's just I felt a lot of shame and around the situation, and I ended up. It was just a crazy experience, because I remember some people get disfellowshipped and they're kind of like they're broken up about it, and for me it was kind of like I was just like, everybody's looking down on me, and like there was like, obviously, and I wasn't happy about the situation that happened, obviously, but
did
when
it
I
feel
got
good to have some space?
exactly, I came home and cracked a beer and was like, wow, like I get a year off. And
Explain to people what you came home from. Came home from the meeting?
yeah, from a judicial meeting. So,
okay,
but which I'm sure it can kind of dive into on another situation. There's some interesting irregularities there, but yeah, I just, you go in there, and that's the thing. I think the first time I got disfellowship, like, you think that these three guys are, convening through the Holy Spirit with God and making a decision about your life. And so when it was done, I was just like, okay, well, this is what God wants. I'll just go bury my head in the sand for a year or whatever.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, is the expectation that we go into judicial meetings with, because I have experience with judicial meetings too, several of them. And I know the difference.
How many were you in? I've only been in one, really, because when I left, I actually didn't have a judicial meeting, so I was in one before. How many were you in, Nash?
I think I've been in 4.
Really?
Yeah, I think so.
We should have we should find the person that's been in the most judicial meetings, and they should win an award.
Probably.
Nash had a Subway card. It was like,
yeah,
I was almost there. 2 more punches.
After his 6-1, he just gets one free. They're like, we don't need to do this.
Yeah.
What did you do? That's fine. Here's my card.
Here's some
this
cookies.
is your free one.
But I think it's interesting, the expectation we go into it when you haven't any experience with them. You do, like Kellan said, that's how you feel. Like, these guys are, they're obviously talking to God in prayer, and they have the shepherd book, even though we've never seen it. But when you haven't seen it, you feel like it's some special kind of knowledge, and these guys can really, find out if you're repentant, and they know what to look for, and obviously they're trained to do this, and you do feel like it's more like a personal and an emotional thing until you get into one, and then you realize it's not. They're just following guidelines that they have, and it just comes down to a bunch of rules and loopholes.
Hey, Nash, for people that are watching, what is a judicial meeting?
Well, it's basically a tribunal. So it's 3 elders. One will be a chairman, and the other 2 are just kind of support guys. But they all have to come to a unanimous decision on the outcome, whether it's so it's going to end one of 3 ways. You'll either be privately reproved, which usually means you'll lose some privileges, they call them, in the congregation. So commenting or running mics or whatever, but you can still go in service, and there's no announcement made. Or there's public reproof, which is kind of like public shaming. You'll lose all your privileges, but you still get to visit with everybody. There's no shunning involved, and
that's announced.
That's announced, so you get shamed that way. Generally, there's a local needs that follows it up. Not always. That's not a hard and fast rule, but generally there is one about whatever it was you were in trouble for, and so everybody sits around and looks at you like, well, that guy's an idiot.
Mine was short. They just had a picture of me with a cloth over it, and then the guy was just like, this. And everyone was like, cool, we got it.
We know what's up.
That. You ever watch that Simpson episode where they're in church and the priest says, I'm not quoting it verbatim, but he goes, so this week's sermon will be about what Nash did. And that's so true. It's like a local needs. But we all know who they're talking about and why they're having this local needs talk.
Yes. Well, there was a terrible story about something that didn't have. There was a guy and a girl that got disfellowshipped the same week, separate things completely. And then they gave a local needs on wife swapping the next week. And it was neither of them had been involved in anything like that.
So everybody thought.
Everybody was like, "Oh boy, that's what those 2 are up to." Anyway, so it's not always about what you were in there for.
That is hilarious.
And then the third and final, like the worst one, is disfellowshipping.
Yeah.
So that's when you walk out of there. Like I've heard some crazy comments. Like the one elder said something. Like we're handing you over to Satan and to Satan's world, and they say crazy things. Like it's a weird experience when you get this fellowship and you walk out because they look at you like dead man walking. That's what you are. You're dead man walking, and that's how you feel. And it's weird because 2 minutes before you were visiting with these guys and telling them every deepest, darkest secret that you have because you feel like they have the right to know for some freaking reason, which they don't. And now all of a sudden they're like, see ya, go say goodbye to your family.
Did they give you, I didn't, when I was, I was kind of forcibly disassociated. So for people watching, you can either get disfellowshipped or disassociated. And disassociating is something that you do yourself. But the ramifications are the same. But Nash and Kellan, did you guys get when I had a final meeting with the elders? They told me you're not allowed to talk to anybody. If you want to talk to somebody, come talk to us. And I actually disagreed with them when they told me that. I said, no, I'm going to talk to whoever I want to talk to. Thank you very much. And you're not going to tell me who to talk to. But did they give you guys? Did they tell you that directly?
Yeah, I had I was going to kind of, when Nash was going, it made me think of some funny things from my first judicial meeting. It was funny because before they gave me the verdict that I was disfellowshipped, the one guy was just like, do you have your baptism card or your blood card here? And I was like, well, that's kind of feels like I know the answer to where this is going.
They asked me that too.
Which is something I guess a lot of people, I mean, I don't even know how much people
Interesting. They never said that to me, but
yeah, it was kind of a giveaway. It's just like, okay, we thought about this also before we go on. And it was funny because he was like,
so they take it away?
They try, yeah.
This guy did.
They want to, yeah.
So you gave it to him and then they took it away.
Yeah. We could do a whole a whole channel just on. I have the funniest meetings. I have 2. Yeah. It'll be a 9-part series on this channel. It's so funny. There's some hilarious snippets. Like one where I admitted that, because there was some question about they want to go. I was going way back. Like my first judicial meeting, this is something I think is worth touching on too about it. Yeah. I was just like, I thought I was talking straight to God. I know God knew.
But you want to get it all off your chest.
Oh, yeah. And it got to the point where they were like, okay, Kellan, I was going through things like, man, summer 98, I took a chocolate bar. And they were just like, they got to a point where they were just like, you know what? That one doesn't matter. Like, it was crazy. I was really just like, you know what? Like, let's clean house. And exactly. And they literally, the worst part too, I was mentally distraught. Like if I had a loaded gun, I would have used it. Like I felt so bad. And they were like, we gotta go. Like they cut my judicial meeting short.
No way.
Yeah, they were just like, and so because they care. Yeah, and so and anyways,
but speaking of that, isn't it amazing how these judicial meetings, like they're meant to be a help to you, where they get to where these elders get together and they're like praying over you and healing you, but really this is a court. Like this is punishment. That's what this is. That's what it feels like, is they're punishing you. There's no love here. This is an investigation into wrongdoing. Hey.
Oh yeah. And you sit at the end of the table and the chairman's at the other end and the other 2 are next to him. And it's like, and they all get their little books out and they're writing down their little notes and you're just sitting there spilling your guts.
Yeah, I remember that when I first kind of called to set up the meeting, like the dude, like just to say, I got to come in. The guy was just like, this is so great that you're just talking to us, and like this is such a good sign. And he was so nice. And I remember just like, because I was just, I felt so shitty about everything that happened. And I did in a again, like witness or not witness, I felt fucking terrible about getting disfellowshipped the first time, and I have to deal with that for my life. Like we all make mistakes and things, but I remember him talking to me and like, God, man, I just you know, it's just like, I felt like this weight coming off of me. I was just like, oh, this is amazing. You know, like this guy understands that I got lost in life. And then the next meeting I come in and he was just like, this is not the same guy. It was just like, I just was like, okay, these guys do care about me, you know? And even if it wasn't about getting disfellowshipped or not, I didn't care about that. Like, again, I was such a believer that I was like, kick me out or don't, I'm coming back. This is the truth.
Yeah.
And then I went into the meeting and it's like, these are different people. They were just like, they were not my friend. What was the most wild about just what you're saying about the stipulations after his disfellowship? I was moving. I told him, I'm like, me and my family, my wife at the time and my son, I was like, I'm moving back to northern Alberta, like back to the Edmonton area to be closer to my family. And I think it'd be good for us to reset. And they were just like, okay, well, you know, like whenever you start going to meetings again, you know, just eventually talk to someone and maybe tell them you want to come back in. And I was like, were you listening to me for the last 19 hours? Like of all these meetings? It's just like, I want to be a Jehovah's Witness. And they were kind of like, if
Writing
you
you
want,
off.
it was kind of like, maybe you don't want me to come back. You know, it was a real kick in the balls. Like,
So you're out and you're moved.
Yeah.
And now you're shunned. How did that experience go? Because that's what I want to kind of like.
Well, I got hired by, he was kind of like a kingpin of the Jehovah's Witness workforce.
Oh, I know where this is going.
No, I got a call from Nashon, which is funny. The beginning of a beautiful relationship.
Yeah, it's a romantic story.
So to be clear, Nash hired you?
Yeah.
This Nash right here?
This Nash. He was Nashon then.
Yeah, it was Nashon then. I know. I'm having trouble with that.
It goes back and forth.
So he called me on the way home from the convention. Convention was weird. First convention. Going there, I took my own separate car because I just felt like an asshole. And just sat there quietly. Is just terrible. With, I don't know how many people. How many people are at a convention? Like a big one, I don't know,
3,000.
3,000 people. We're just like, we're not talking to this guy. But I drove
Nobody
home.
Talked to you.
Yeah, Nash calls me and he goes, hey. And I was like, hey. And he's like, I know your situation. I was like, okay. Because I was like, why is this dude calling me? That's a no-no. And he was just like, hey, I know your situation. And he's like, Jared, we're doing some stucco. And he just said, like, do you want to work with us? And again, I was close to Jared. I had vacationed with him and kind of through marriage.
Jared is Nash's brother.
Yeah. And so I moved up there. And again, the situation of my disfellowshipping kind of, you know, it spread around. And so like, I just was, and that's like, you know, that's how the organization works. Things get around fast. And so like, I went from that to like, I had no friends. And then Jared was my only friend, you know, like I could talk to my wife and, you know, I had a little son at the time and they gave me a job, but, it was really weird for everybody because it was kind of like, you can work here, but, you know, if we're having coffee, don't, you know, maybe have your coffee over, you know, like, well, no one said that, but it was just kind of that weird, like we're all trying
awkward.
to, it was very, this constantly changing, fluid situation of like,
so you weren't allowed to talk to anybody, but you did go to work for witnesses, but it was odd because even in the coffee break, you're like, well, do I talk to these guys or not talk to them? Hey, is that correct?
Oh yeah, like it was tough, and it felt bad because I knew these guys from, I think like sports, like we all kind of played hockey together, so that was kind of always knew guys from playing hockey, and because that was, I mean, we live in Canada, it's popular, and so then it was weird for them to be having coffee, and I would just be kind of standing on the edge of the circle in the group. And like, it was just hilarious. The closer I moved into the group, kind of, they go, kind of like guys that get nervous. But I was very respectful of it, which was hard for me. Once I kind of got over the, you know, screw these guys for shutting me out, not like Nash and them, but just the witnesses. It was hard for me not to push buttons. But so anyway, so it was a long year. And yeah, it was just me and I mean, Jared was like the only thing I had to really look forward to, because it's like well, if anybody knows the family, like they work like animals, like it's they big days and work hard. And I remember Jared would be like work until 10 or 11 at night, and he'd be like, "You can go home," and I'd just be like, "Well, I have nothing." Like, I had a family, but I was pretty torn up, and I was just like, "I'll just help if you're here working." So it was just a year of working and just trying to avoid association. So yeah, it was
And was this when Nash, when you were forced to let him go? Like, was that a different time, or is that this time?
No, that's this time. It was after about a year.
Really? So for people watching, they might think, oh, the witnesses helped you out there. But really, first of all, you're not allowed to talk to anybody, right? You're not allowed to talk to witnesses. You don't have any friends outside of the witnesses. Some witnesses did hire you on, but the elders, gave them shit for that too. Like, where they eventually had to let you go. Hey?
Yeah, it was pretty wild, because I mean, I knew that right away. Like, right away, there was like a real rift where it was kind of like,
you knew this was going to be trouble.
Yeah, and I remember Jared. I was always like, "Thanks, man, thanks." Like, thanks for the job, and because I mean, Nation, like, gave me the job, and he was running the company, but like, I
worked with Jared directly.
I worked with Jared, right. And so Jared was always just, I mean, he was a great guy, right? It was just like, he's solid gold. So he always.
But we always had a little bit of pushback because you worked for us. Like, it was always like this little bit of judgmentalism from, because there was a lot of, like every Jehovah's Witness congregation, there's a bunch of brothers in the trades. So we'd have all these other elders and that would work for us too. And they would come in and you would get that same judgmentalism. Like, we had a safety course, and everybody came to our safety course, and Kellan, whipped up on his motorbike and came to the course too, because he worked for us. And everybody was just kind of like, it's just this awkward kind of like side-eyed glances and bullshit. And looking, and it's weird because at the time I accepted it as normal. I mean, maybe it didn't feel normal, but at the time that's what it was. Yeah. And looking back now, it's just an awful way to behave. And we'd give our kids shit for behaving that way around other kids for no good reason. Like, we don't accept that behavior in school. We have anti-bullying days. And here we are as adults acting like a bunch of passive-aggressive bullies.
And what's amazing is that, like, in my situation, I'm kind of like an apostate. But with Kellan, it's like he wanted to be a witness. It's not, he's not. And here, this is how he's treated. Mm-hmm. He's treated like a person with leprosy. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a interesting situation, but I think the big difference from then and the second time, I got disfellowshipped again, and it was pretty much like I basically commandeered that meeting, helped myself out the door.
Yeah,
because I was kind of mentally leaving at that point, and some stuff got dredged up from actually a year prior, and so that was a very different meeting. When I went in there, they were kind of like, "Do you feel bad about this?" And I was like, "Feel bad about what?" It's like a year and a half ago. And I was kind of like, "You want me to come in here and be emotional about what?" Like, it's
something that's happened a long time ago.
Yeah, it's like, it's kind of, I mean, whoever needed to, like, it was just very funny that it was so.
You could see it was very
so interesting when you don't allow the elders to have power. Right. When you start to take the power, and you'll notice that if you ever listen to anybody, like any of these videos online with YouTube, whatever, where they record the judicial committee, and that this person is they're waking up to the religion, and they start to take the power back from the elders. They start to question the elders. They start to say, to question what they're doing, and it's like we all kind of had that time where, and for me, it's the same thing. On my last elders meeting, that it was not a pleasant meeting. And I was telling them things, and partially, you're kind of upset too, right? But it sounds like that's what you were doing.
And they just want to tick boxes.
Yeah.
They go in there with an agenda. They always do.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, so is he repentant?
Mm-hmm.
Does he plan on coming back? Who knows about what he did? Or who knows about what he feels? Who's he told about it? How does he feel about the disfellowshipping arrangement? How does he feel about the elders in the congregation? And how's his relationship with Jehovah? Does he pray? They got all these fucking boxes they want to tick off. Yeah. They mean nothing. They mean not a goddamn thing. But for them, it's super important And they're just, that's their goal, is to get these boxes ticked off. They don't give a shit what you say. They don't care how you feel.
If they get the idea that you're not repentant or that you're questioning them, they're just waiting to
Done
kick
deal.
you out.
Yeah, they just want you to go out so they can adjudicate.
Yeah, I also like the who knows.
Yeah,
where it's just like it's funny because I had a couple close family members come to me and they're just like, we know you're sorry, but like too many people know it had to be done. And I was like, wait, that's not what I thought when I went in. It was kind of like they asked like if I had discussed my situation with immediate family. Yeah. And I was just like, I can't talk to anyone about this. Like, it's crazy.
It's funny because the literature says both things, right? Never together, but it says both. It talks about disfellowshipping, keeping the congregation clean. That's its goal. But then on the other hand, in another paragraph, it'll talk about how disfellowshipping only happens when someone is unrepentant. Willful wrongdoing, unrepentant behavior, that's why you get disfellowshipped. And it doesn't mention anything about keeping the congregation clean there, but then in the next article or whatever, then it'll say it. But they never correlate the two together. Like, I mean, they are one and the same. So repentance has nothing to do with keeping the congregation clean. Yeah. If somebody did something that embarrasses the congregation and they're getting disfellowshipped, repentance is not even on the table.
Yeah.
That's irrelevant. But they never show that. They never say that.
Yeah. So I'll jump back in here. What's kind of funny is, one of the big things that helped me, I think, get out was that I moved to a new town. I started playing beer league hockey, like rec hockey, and I've always loved hockey. And then just a guy on the beer league team was like, oh, like you grew up playing hockey, obviously, whatever kind of thing. And I was like, oh no, I was raised in this kind of religious situation. I wasn't really allowed to play team sports because of all those satanic kids. And so anyways, I ended up going and trying out for it's like senior hockey in Alberta. Like, it's all over Canada, but it's kind of like a last ditch effort for competitive hockey.
Let me just for you joining the beer league and this senior league, this is something that you're not supposed to do as a witness.
Oh, see that? I mean, like, it's going to be hard not to stretch this to 4 hours, but but
I think it's worth mentioning that what you're doing there, like if the elders in the congregation knew that you were joining beer leagues and senior leagues, this is a no-no.
We got talked to for playing shinny hockey, drop-in shinny at lunchtime because of the Worldly Association.
Yeah.
Growing up.
I think that's an interesting point about the whole shunning thing, is how, like, we're good at shunning because we're terrified of people who aren't witnesses to start with, right? And it was in Medicine Hat where I lived before I got this fellowship. All the witnesses, a lot of the brothers, they would all get together and play noon hour shinny because lots of guys played hockey, and it was totally kosher until like one random elder in one of their 3 halls down there, churches basically, and then they shut it down, and it was, everybody was okay with it for a couple of years actually, which was new because I didn't think it wasn't beer league, but it was just drop in. And then all of a sudden they were just like, no more. And then everybody just, phone calls dropped. I couldn't get a hold of anybody, and I kept going because I was like, screw that, I'm playing hockey. And it was funny how, like, there'd be those little tweets. It was like poker when poker was popular. Yeah. I used to have these huge poker games at my house, and
no money,
just for fun. Witnesses coming over, and it was like, I don't know, it was pretty fun. Everybody, and I was kind of bridging the gaps between the different cliques. Like, it was like I was like, anybody can come. So I'd have a pioneer, pouring a pretty stiff drink for the guy who doesn't go to any meetings. Like it was
well,
like
witnesses are not allowed to do much, but they're allowed to drink. So
they love
to drink.
I love that. Yeah, that was that's some funny stories. Being the fly on the wall for that is funny.
Yeah. Before we get too far, I want to jump in with a quick hockey story because I don't know whenever I'll get to tell it again.
Yeah.
So you remember when we had those outdoor tournaments, and I would put a team in Edson. So we did them. Did you ever play in one, Kellan?
Yes.
You played in one of them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, there's stories there that we can't.
In the face.
Oh, right, you got punched in the face. Okay, that's a story we're not going to tell.
No,
but anyway, we played in this. So I'd put in a team of all witnesses. And because we can't have any worldly guys in our team because that'd be bad. So we did this and we went. It was a super fun tournament. Anyway, we come back from this tournament and there's this one elder who's just got a fucking hard on for shutting down anything fun. And he gets up at the end of the meeting and does an announcement. And apparently the elder body didn't really know what he was going to say in this announcement.
He didn't clear it.
He didn't really clear it. He kind of said it. He gave this announcement and basically marked us, anybody who played in that tournament, as bad association. So nobody really knew this was going to happen. My dad flips out because he's always whatever. He's all about following direction. And the next meeting, one of the other elders had to get up and apologize.
No way.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's ever happened before. He got up
I've never
and
seen that.
I have it recorded somewhere. I got to find it someday. It's on my laptop or something. But I recorded the apology. But they apologized for that talk and said that while we don't encourage the worldly association, somebody shouldn't be marked as bad association for doing that.
It's so funny how hockey causes so many problems in Canada. Hey?
Yeah, for sure.
It's hilarious. There's always problems, no matter what city you're in, with the JW hockey games.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too because it's really opened up like before I left. Because I started playing, I have to get back to that, but it's just like when I got reinstated, I would go to witness tournaments out of town, and it was always funny because it was just like, it was like, and you know what? I don't even want to, like, at the time it kind of bugged me because I was like, well, these guys aren't really acting like witnesses. Like, I'm the bad witness, so no one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Kellan runs a cat shelter.
Yeah. If you want, this guy's $29.99.
They're running up and down the stairs nonstop.
I like that cat.
Yeah, that's he's got some problems. But it was just funny because that was always really hard for me. I would go and again, like, because I played, I don't know. Well, I played good hockey when I was DF'd. I played for a long time. So I was playing with a real team and playing. So it kind of, I improved. And then it was kind of this weird thing because when there was a tournament, not that I was the, best player in the world, but for witnesses, like, I had real hockey experience. And so they'd be like, yeah, Kellan. And I was friends with other guys. So I was kind of like, if I was a shitty hockey player, I'm sure I wouldn't have been invited. But they were happy to have me. And then we'd go out of town and they'd party. And no one was crazy. But it bothered me because I was like, these guys aren't acting like witnesses here. And then they come back. But they all get to go back to their good witness life. And I was the asshole who was like, well, everything kind of got pinned on me.
Yeah, you were the bad guy.
Yeah, but
let's get back to, you said you were joining the senior team in the beer league, and then I rudely interrupted you. Where was that going? Was that headed to the second disfellowshipping?
Yeah, well, no, but it was just an interesting because I really, again, with the whole belief side of it, I never hung out with people who weren't witnesses. Like, I took that very seriously. So then I went and tried out for this team, and then it was like 1 or 2 games a weekend, practices midweek. We'd go to the bar after, go for lunches, stuff. Like, it was suddenly I had this group of 25 guys I was friends with, and it was funny because they had no idea. I had to like kind of fib my way onto the team almost because they were like, "Oh, well, you've played hockey," and I was kind of like, "Yeah, sure."
You've hit before, right?
Yeah, because it was contact hockey, right? So they were like, "Well, obviously, when you played minor hockey," and I was like, "For sure." So 2 weeks later, there I am in a full body cast.
18 ice baths later.
Yeah, 18 ice baths. Pretty rough introduction, but they were really nice. But I never told those guys I was a witness, and so, but hanging out with them for that year, I mean, it kept me going. I don't want to say it kept me alive, but I mean, it was a pretty rough year, right? And like that was something to really, work towards. And then when I came back, I got reinstated, and it was a rough because it was, I don't know, that changed me a lot. And then of course, like Jared passing away was rough. It was kind of around the same time, and so that was like just a tough time because I didn't have any friends. They were my friends, but are they my friends? They don't really know who I am.
So talking about shunning.
Yeah.
So when we laid you off, that was probably what, this time of year or a month before, February?
It was I think it was only a month.
Yeah, it was probably February or March.
Yeah, before Jared passed.
Yeah.
So I remember we went to provincials and you called me in provincials. That wasn't that long after.
Right. Yeah. So Kellan come to the funeral, still disfellowshipped. This was after we had to let him go. And then tell us about that weird.
Yeah. So I went, and that was like well, first of all, it had been almost a year since I was disfellowshipped. So I was kind of like, maybe I could get reinstated before. I was going to every meeting, doing everything. And they were just like, no, it's actually, my hall was pretty cool. They were like, yeah, you've been really trying and you're at every meeting. Cool. And then the other guys from the other hall were like, not enough time has passed. And I should have known better, but I was a little pissed that I was like, it'd be nice to be reinstated before the funeral so I can talk. And
so a lot of people don't realize that when you get disfellowshipped in another town, those elders have to approve you getting reinstated, even though the other elders are keeping an eye on you. So that's what happened in this case.
Yeah, sorry, it's so much little stuff you don't throw in. But so the funeral, like, I mean, it really pissed me right off because I remember just everyone being like, "But Kellan, you can be there." And I was like, "Oh fuck, now I can be there? Like now I can go and talk to people? Like that's rich." It's just like I just needed my buddy to die, and then everything's kosher again for one day. And then what? Like, do I get told midnight that night and then it's off? Like, how do I get 24 hours? Is it 12? Like, and the way people treated me for that day was so hard because everyone was like, "Hey, Kellan," like, it was to me, it was just like, it's
it was almost like they gave you like you got a free pass for that day.
Like, thank God we have this
to be a witness again.
This terrible tragedy really brought us together. It's just like, wow. So that was a big pill to swallow. So then after that, actually what happened is like, I was so pissed about that and about some of the other stuff that I kind of, it's funny. I kind of didn't want to go back. I was kind of like, you know what? I'm kind of enjoying this. Like, I'm kind of starting to like none of the weirdness of being around these people. And then I remember the elders coming to me and being like, "Hey, it's been a year now." Like, because I think I tried like 6 times to get reinstated toward the end of that year. Yeah, like it was a bunch, and they said no. And it basically went to a full calendar year. I think I started trying after, it would have been 8 months or something, right? And at 12 months, then I remember an elder coming to me at one of the meetings and being like, "You should put your letter in. It's a good month," kind of thing. And I was like, I don't know if I want to. I think I'm going to wait a bit. I think I need more time. And I remember him being like, "Is there a reason that you're not putting the letter in?" And I was like, "No, I just don't need to." And then,
can you talk for a little bit? People might be familiar with the Canadian Supreme Court case, and we'll probably show it later, maybe when Nash gets talking. They talk about in that court case, they talk about going to meetings. What's it like going to meetings? So for anybody's watching, it's church. That's JW Church. It's called meetings. What is it like going to meetings as a disfellowshipped person?
Well, my wife at the time and my son, like I had, was with my family. So we weren't really like hardcore witnesses anyways. You know what I mean? It was small town. So we would show up like 10 minutes, 5 minutes before the meetings start. And then it's funny because I'm sure every hall has their own rules, or not rules, but kind of those unspoken kind of cultural norms. And like I'd wait in the car till the meeting started. So there'd be a song and a prayer. And then I would come in and sit down.
I don't think this is a cultural thing. This is everywhere.
I mean, like a witness culture.
Yeah.
I mean, each hall has their own kind of little eclectic.
They do. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. Yeah.
So I can't speak for everybody, but our hall, definitely Kingdom Hall, whatever church was, you came in right when the meeting was started. Actually, you could come in earlier, but who the hell would want to?
What would happen if you came in earlier? What would happen?
You just sit like an idiot in the corner while
I did it.
Nobody would speak to you.
I did it once.
This is the point. I'm just trying to make a simple point that nobody talks to you.
Yeah. I guess, I'm spinning a lot of stories here, but I'm not really. I'm missing the point that it's just like nobody who's a witness. Like, you're in a grocery store, there's just a few people who would kind of smile and nod, but like a lot of people would see you, and I'd walk by them, and they would just be like, going over here.
Yeah.
And those ones are a little bit rebellious, you know, like those ones that give you,
Yeah.
because I remember there was a couple like that here that would give you like kind of a smile or kind of a nod, or like I remember one older sister would tap me on the shoulder because she's just a super nice lady.
Yeah.
And I guarantee it went against all of her human nature to shun someone. And so for her, she was like, if I just tap him on the shoulder and let him know, you know, I still care about him, then I'm doing okay, but I'm still following the rules, you know. But the reality is that's not the norm.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we listen to Ganam and talk about? Let's just focus on him talking about going to meetings. Is this a good time for that, Nash? You think?
Yeah, put her in.
Let's just focus on the going to meetings when he's talking about that. I'll stop it when he gets there, and then we'll kind of hone in on what he's not saying there.
Yeah. So this is a Jehovah's Witness for those who haven't seen it. The Jehovah's Witness lawyer, who's also an elder.
As I point out at paragraph 22 of my factum, the nature of the relationship then of a disfellowship person is not completely shunned. The disfellowship person is able to come into the congregation, to the congregation meetings. They're able to attend in the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. They're able to sit wherever they like. They can sing the spiritual songs with the congregation. As far as their family members are concerned, normal family relations continue.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. So, you know, let's talk about, for one thing, he's talking about going to meetings, right? First thing he says is that an individual, or one of the things he says, individual can sit wherever they want. That's not true, right? And so technically they can sort of sit wherever they want, but nobody's allowed to speak to this person. So what happens in every single hall? Where do disfellowshipped people sit?
It's kind of like, so this is a meat grinder. You can put your hand in it. It's like, it's like exactly. who would go sit at the front? Like it's, like there's not a real stipulation, but I mean,
it's the back row or the back couple rows. Hey,
well, I mean, it's, I don't think it's going to help your chances of getting back if you stick your front self in the front, but
the point is that in our hall, individuals wouldn't sit at the back of the hall because you always save a few seats for the disfellowshipped people, because the disfellowshipped people sit at the back of the hall. That's where they sit, right? And it might be the second last row or but that's where the disfellowshipped people go. So he is kind of correct in that you can kind of sit wherever you want, but no witness is going to sit at the front. It's always the back of the hall, correct?
Yeah, for sure. It's like you can accept a blood transfusion.
But you'll get kicked out.
Now,
another thing. So what's the big thing that Ganam doesn't mention here? The big thing is, you can sing the songs, but nobody speaks to you. You come into the hall, like Kellan was saying, you come into the hall after the meeting has started, maybe when the song is being sung or the prayer is being said. You don't talk to anybody. You stay for the meeting, and right when the end of the meeting happens, that's when you leave. You don't talk to anybody. Sure, you can sing, but you can't talk to anybody. That's messed up.
Yeah. And you realize how messed up it is. Were you at the meeting where you got reinstated, Kellan?
I wasn't going to go.
How were things for you after that final prayer?
My mom was like, and that's when I was kind of like, maybe I don't want to come back. And my mom was like, and I love my mom. Like, she's just the sweetest
she's
lady.
Awesome.
Great person, great human being, like unreal. Really, I'm so lucky. Like, and I both have really nice parents, which I give a lot of credit to. Like,
we don't want this to be this, and I always say this to people online. We're not coming down on individuals. The reality is there's a lot of great people in the organization.
Yeah.
You know what? I think of there's awesome people, amazing, talented and smart and, cool people that, that are all in this organization, and even my family actually like my family.
Yeah.
So this, the crazy batshit crazy stuff that goes on lots of times, or almost always, it's the organization that's pushing this. It's not about individuals. We all have great family members and great friends that won't speak to us, won't have anything to do with us. They're still cool people.
I did it to my friends.
Yeah.
I had there was a guy in our hall who's out now, like he's been out for a while, but he got disfellowshipped a couple times, and he would wait until I would like the meetings he got disfellowshipped. I remember when I was like a teenager, because we'd hang out lots. He was a bit older, but like we both played music, same kind of interest, and he would like kind of follow me into the bathroom or into the back before the announcement. And I remember two times, I guess, he came in and gave me a big hug and was like, I'm getting disfellowship tonight, and like I just had to tell you. And I was always like, yeah, that's cool. But I always remember telling him, if you need anything, like I get the rules, but I always had that conflict. I was like, if you're really in a jam, like, I'm not. And then every time he got disfellowshipped, I was a little more lenient, where I'd be like, dude, I don't really care, and but just to see someone, you know what, my disfellowshipping and all that stuff, I don't feel like I have a whole history in life and different things that I'm sure were struggles for me, but like I don't look at my life and go like, woe is me, because like I had it pretty good, considering. What bothered me growing up as a witness was the other people who got kicked out, mistreated, and who didn't have any, you're not raised with coping mechanisms as a Jehovah's Witness.
And you don't have any support outside of the organization.
Yeah. So I would see these guys get tossed out to the wolves. And it's like the most audacious thing that I hear out of Jehovah's Witnesses' mouth is when they go like, you see that guy, he left, and look at where his life went. It's like, oh, no shit. That guy who was struggling, and then you took his friends and family away, and he didn't get better. Oh, crazy. I can't believe it. Mind blown.
Exactly.
It's just like, wow, that's can you go and write that down and then reread it to yourself later, and maybe just like unbelievable.
Yeah, for those that are watching, it's like it is, the organization talks about when individuals leave, they kind of fall apart, right? And it's kind of this cliche, oh, when you leave, you're going to become a criminal, and you're going to go to jail, or you're going to get a sexually transmitted disease, or have an unwanted pregnancy. That's what happens. And the Watchtower protects you from that. Well, the truth of the matter is that, like when you're kicked out of the organization, this is an incredibly traumatic experience, and you don't have any friends outside of the organization. You have no coping mechanisms. You have no critical thinking ability. You are a sheep among wolves, and lots of times bad things do happen, but it's the result of the treatment of the Watchtower that these terrible things happen.
Yeah. And it makes me think of too, Jehovah's Witnesses take it to the extreme, but a lot of times when we read on, when it comes to psychology and dealing with toxic people, or people that are, maybe somebody has a real problem. Maybe they have an alcohol or drug addiction or whatever it is, and it's causing problems within a family. And everything will tell you to support and help that person, or try and get them the help they need, but they need to come to the realization on their own. And then in the extreme case, when that person won't get help, and they just keep causing, problems everywhere. In that extreme case, they'll say, maybe you need to cut contact or limit contact with that person. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses, they just jump all of it and go straight to no contact, straight to shun them. And that's going to fix them. And that's it. It doesn't matter what they did. They could have smoked a pack of cigarettes for all they know. And it's the same punishment as if they went and killed somebody. As far as the Jehovah's Witnesses, punishment goes, it's the same thing. But for them, it's all the same punishment. And they think it's loving, and it's going to make them come back. And every article you read, there will be this anecdote about this person that was disfellowshipped. And had I just, had a little bit of contact with my family, it might have been enough that I didn't come back. That's fucking blackmail. That's all it is. That is blackmail, plain and simple. And if you need blackmail to make somebody stay in your group or come back to your group, there's something wrong, because it doesn't stand on its own.
You know what? We've heard from Kellan a lot, and pipe in whenever you want. Why don't we switch things over to Nash now? We're almost an hour here. What happened with you with disfellowshipping and shunning?
Oh, lots.
I know for all of us, this is like an endless. You could talk endlessly about it, but
Yeah, I'll try not to talk too much about it. I guess just kind of the main ones are. I remember getting first time I ever had a judicial committee. I was young, and I was publicly approved. So I experienced that public shaming, loss of privileges. It was super weird. I moved towns after. And then I actually, when we were appointed as ministerial servants, the elders had to write the branch to see if they could approve me, because it hadn't been long enough since my public reproof to appoint me. Anyway, they got special consideration because Jehovah really loved me and wanted me to be a ministerial servant. So I got special consideration and got appointed. But anyway, so that happened, and then everything was great and wonderful. And then when I got this fellowship the first time, like I really didn't want to, and I was in a really bad place, and we could go into there was a lot of stuff that happened.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons, and Kellan kind of mentioned a few of them.
Yeah, and I mean that was all around the same time, right? And so drinking, it became a huge issue with me, and one day we're going to talk about that on its own, because drinking is its own thing, and that had become kind of my crutch, and eventually my downfall. Which I finally overcome after I left. But at that time, that's what I'd first got in trouble for, and was disfellowshipped for drinking. And I was really sorry, because I wasn't like a partying drinker. I was like a guy with some serious mental and emotional issues. Had post-traumatic stress disorder at the time. Didn't sleep. Was on all kinds of prescriptions from the doctors that weren't helping. And these are all excuses, I guess, but they're all reasons as well. But I was really sorry. I didn't want to be on that path. I wanted to be a good Jehovah's Witness. I didn't want to die in Armageddon, So I appealed it. Same thing happened. It was pretty much cut and dry when I went into the appeal committee that they were just going to disfellowship me. They were like, "You need some time." That's what they said to me. You need some time.
Time for what?
I don't know. It's such a joke. So away I went, and I missed. I didn't go to the meeting where I was announced, but the next meeting was the memorial.
Hey, Kellan, did you go to so you went to the meeting where you were announced?
No, I did not.
Really?
No, I
What are you,
went to the
crazy?
reinstatement.
Well, some
going to
people
that.
do, right?
Well, they tell you should.
Oh,
It's like you're taking your lumps, right?
my sister, who is like a very well-to-do witness, she was like, "I'll drive 7 hours and go with you to your meeting. Just like if you need that extra." But
Support.
when the meeting's over, I'm gonna leave for a year.
Yeah.
Thanks. It's like,
Thanks for the
Yeah.
weird support.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's like, come here and really take that last punch in the face.
Some people do go to the meeting. If I have time to talk about my experiences, I remember individuals that were actually at their own meeting. That's pretty gutsy.
Yeah.
So
Well,
for people
they're
that
hoping to
don't
get
know,
back.
what happens is the elder gets up on stage and says, "We have an announcement to make." And now it's changed over the years. Now what it would be is, we have an announcement to make. Greg Westgard is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. It used to be in the past where they'd say Greg Westgard has been disfellowshipped, but now the announcement is Greg Westgard is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and then a hush falls over the crowd, and he quietly walks off the stage, and they move on to other things. It's really awkward and weird.
And
in
people
public
cry.
reproof. Yeah, people cry. And in public reproof, they make the announcement that the matter regarding Greg Westgard has been dealt with, and he was found to be repentant.
Is that what it is now?
Yeah.
Because I remember in the past, the Watchtower changes stuff quite often.
It might have changed. I've been on for a few years, but that's what it was.
Yeah. No, you would have a much more recent. Both of you guys would have much more recent experience with the Watchtower. Yeah, but you know, I'm older than you guys too. So it used to be they would say that Greg Westgard has been publicly reproved. I think they would say
they used
that.
to say that. They don't say it
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now they say that the matter's been dealt with and he was found repentant. The opposite of getting kicked out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's bullshit. But so anyway, going back, I went to all the meetings, never missed. I waited 2 months, and then I started writing appeal letters, or not appeal letters, reinstatement letters, and I wrote a letter every month after that, and I wrote a different letter every month.
Nation, what was it like when you were disfellowshipped? Who talked to you? Did family relationships change?
Well, I still worked, so same thing. I still kind of ran the business that my family all worked for, but just my dad was left at this point. So we worked pretty closely together, and my dad is a great guy, and so he would still. It just became an awkward relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't allowed to like go to their house or have dinner there or do anything with them, but I worked.
So
with
let
them
me
all day.
say this: if your family had a family barbecue or whatever, would you be invited?
No way in hell.
Unless they were barbecuing him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
so
and
I
the
think
same
this
thing.
is a general statement that we can make about any disfellowshipping.
Yeah.
You know, the thing to remember is that the witnesses don't have friends outside of the organization. So if you're disfellowshipped and there's any barbecue, there's any get together, anything that happens, you are no longer invited.
Yeah.
The only thing that the Watchtower and witnesses will allow you to go to is what's already been talked about. It's a funeral.
Yeah.
Right? You're not invited to weddings. You're not invited. You can maybe go to the hall and watch the wedding, but you can't show up before and you have to leave right after. But there's no receptions. There's no barbecues. There's no any type of get together. You are no longer invited anymore. And usually people don't have any friends outside of the organization. So you are all alone. And the only time you have contact with witnesses is maybe at work or you know, your wife and your other child that aren't, or your children that aren't disfellowshipped, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. My niece was invited to her brother's wedding last year, maybe 2 years now. But she could only, because she's disfellowshipped, she could come to the wedding ceremony at the Kingdom Hall, but not the reception.
Exactly.
And it's frustrating because initially I think when you receive the invitation, you probably feel a little bit like, because it's your family and you love them and you're like, oh, well, it's nice that they thought of me. But really, it's almost like taking your nose and rubbing it in shit. Because in no way is that is that like a nice gesture, like you thought of me. It's like, hey, why don't you come watch me get married? None of us are going to talk to you. We're going to have a party after, and you get to go home and think about what you've done.
That is just so horrible.
I like. I personally like how there's this kind of you'll catch witnesses saying, it's like, you know what, you have a choice though. You have a choice, and it's just like, what choice is that? Like, you know, like you're saying, you're not allowed to barbecue, go to barbecues or other events like that. Let's just take it back to the family. When I talk to people, like I'm married got married last summer. Great girl, got a little baby right now. Like life is awesome. But she's incredible. But I got a new family. You know, I got a whole group of people who have never heard of any of this bullshit that we grew up with.
Yeah.
You know, like and it's incredible when you talk to them, because when you say like, oh yeah, I got DF'd or I got disfellowship, they kind of shun you. They go like, oh yeah, like they think of it probably the same way that this guy in the court case, this elder, like you know how he frames it, that it's like, oh well, you probably can't go to church.
That's no big deal, really.
Yeah, and then when you're like, no, like my family didn't talk to me, and you know what, like the thing that like I've said a lot of stuff. One thing, it's just like the way that my parents had to handle this, and the way also they were treated. Like my mom, it's like she would come over to my house because I had little kids to help, and they came to her and were like, "We see your car too much. at your son's house. And it's
Wow.
like, my wife at the time was a Jehovah's Witness, and I had 2 kids, and they were just like, I was just like, who the hell are these people to come and tell this nice old lady that she can't go and see her grandkids because I'm in the building? And when you tell that to people who aren't witnesses, they're just like, well, that's insane. And it's like, no, that's normal.
Yeah, people do not know the extent of what elders will do to prevent other witnesses from talking to disfellowshipped people. You can get into some real trouble if you spend too much time or any time around disfellowshipped people. And also, the disfellowshipped person is not going to get reinstated if they know that they're incognito hanging out with other witnesses, right?
Yeah.
So they keep a pretty tight grip on that. If you're speaking with a disfellowshipped person as a witness, you're going to get talked to, and if you keep doing it, you'll see your own judicial committee.
And a little cliff note:
Can we?
If we're both disfellowshipped, you're not supposed to talk to other people who are out.
Yeah, that's a funny caveat.
That's the best thing. It's like, oh, you're out and this guy's out. No,
you guys are bad for each other.
Yeah.
Don't you be hanging out together just because you can. I think we should talk about what kind of made us think to do an episode on shunning and what
that's a good idea.
It really means as for Jehovah's Witnesses, because it's different. And like we just talked about, when you tell someone you're being shunned by your family or that you were disfellowshipped as a Jehovah's Witness, they don't understand what that means. They don't understand the severity of it and how hard it's practiced. And something that Greg and I both have dealt with online is Jehovah's Witnesses will come on, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, whatever. They will come on.
Or people that are not even witnesses.
Or people that aren't even witnesses, or that were raised around witnesses.
Yeah.
And they'll defend the Jehovah's Witnesses, and they will give you some anecdote that says, I know this guy, and he was kicked out, and his family never shunned him, or we always loved you, and we never shunned you. Jehovah's Witnesses don't shun. But the reality is, just because they didn't, or they didn't experience it, does that mean that it's not the way we're saying it? Are we just angry apostates or dissatisfied Jehovah's Witnesses that are trying to point a finger where it doesn't belong? Or what's the truth here?
Yeah. So I'll speak to that. This is what I've seen when people say that, when they say, oh, this individual was never shunned or that didn't happen. I've never seen that from witnesses or ex-witnesses. I've actually only seen it from people that have a friend that's a witness, or, they know of somebody that's a witness, because very few JWs, active JWs or ex-JWs, are going to say that because they know it's a lie. They know that shunning is almost totally complete. Like, you are not invited to any association or get together at all. Now, there may be some congregation somewhere in who knows where that doesn't quite follow the rules, right? So you might have one family maybe somewhere that kind of, that are on the edge, that maybe don't follow shunning to the letter. But I've actually, I know a lot of witnesses. I have like generations of family members that are witnesses and were witnesses. I knew a lot of people, and I have never seen it. I have only seen the classic shunning. Nobody speaks to that person, only on like certain situations where you maybe have to deal with some business situation, or, if the person lives in your house, they, obviously there's still some contact, but by and large, all association is cut off. The individual is cut off from the congregation. It is an archaic, crazy situation, and a lot of people that are not witnesses would find it just if they actually saw it in front of them happening, they would, what is going on here? This person, all of a sudden, yesterday, everybody was talking to this person. And now today, nobody's talking to this person. This is insane. But you know what? It's real and it happens and it's still happening.
Yeah. I was when I was doing some research on shunning this morning, I found an interesting quote from a PhD. She's a cultural anthropologist, Janice Harper. She specializes in conflict. And just in shunning, she said that it's a cruel, unnecessary, and pointless. And she said, first things first, shunning and bullying are abuse. Any family members who encourage others to shun you is not only abusing you, but damaging your relationship with other family members. And I mean, all you got to do is a quick Google search on shunning or ostracism, and you will see that the world unanimously, for the most part, agrees that it is abuse, that it causes harm, and especially in the family sense. And for Jehovah's Witnesses, that's, I think, why I get so frustrated when I read things like the Norway appeal and every other, and the case with Randy in Calgary, where or with the Supreme Court, and how they just minimize it. They pretend like it's not what it is. And the reality is, and we talked about this before, is these guys have no backbone. They are cowards, and you're taught as a Jehovah's Witness.
We're talking about the Watchtower here.
Yeah, Watchtower.
The organization. Yeah.
The organization, because as individual witnesses, we're taught to stick up for our beliefs. And you said this before, like as a 14-year-old kid, you don't stand for the anthem. You sit down, you take a stand for your beliefs because it's right and you're making Jehovah proud. And if somebody questions you, you are ready to make a defense. But these fucking guys, they won't. They will sidestep and lie and mislead the courts and pretend that it's not what it is. When if they just had the balls to stand up and say, yeah, we shun. That is exactly what we do. Normal family relations do not continue.
Exactly. Let me take that a step further, Nash. Just think of the history. And, I'm speaking to people that aren't witnesses or existing witnesses right now. Just think of the history of the witnesses in the fact that they were persecuted in the Second World War by the Nazis, right? They were imprisoned, and witnesses were actually offered the choice to say, you renounce your religion and we'll let you go. And these people were threatened with death. Like, they're in a concentration camp here. And these people, with their integrity, they stood up with a gun to their head, basically, and said, no, I'm not going to renounce my faith. And the Watchtower holds these people up, as examples. Like, look at how strong their faith was. And, you got to hand it to these people. Yeah, they did have strong faith. That takes a lot of courage to do that. But witnesses, I'm speaking to JWs right now, your organization does not do the same thing. When they are faced by the courts, they just simply lie. Mm-hmm. That is a slap in the face to those people that stood up for their beliefs in front of the Nazis with guns to their head. But when Watchtower is faced in a court of law, when they just simply lie. Do you know that? Do you realize that? They just simply lie. They don't tell the truth. So you know what? You should just simply lie too. Integrity means nothing to this organization. Nothing. They are cowards when it comes to being in the courts, or when they're pressured, or when they're going to lose some money, when they're going to face a civil claim against them, or when they're going to lose funding from a governmental organization. They just simply lie.
And they don't have your back, as we've just learned.
Yeah.
If you're a Jehovah's Witness elder and you are loyal and you are following the rules and you're listening to direction from the branch, just take that case in Illinois and you will see how much these guys have your back when push comes to shove. All of a sudden it's, sorry, we had nothing to do with this. And
you're going to jail, even though you're following the direction that we told you to do.
Yeah. I like the worldwide aspect of it, how it's just like, you want to know something amazing about this organization? They got the same thing being said at every meeting around the world. It's like,
So
oh, can we talk about one country in another part of the world? I don't think so. Not today.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's all worldwide and how connected we are. And then you're like, oh, somebody who's part of your group is saying some pretty crazy shit over here. And you're like, I don't know. I got to look into that.
Australia.
Yeah,
It doesn't matter.
Control the
Australia.
information. Witnesses don't know this. The stuff that we're talking about right now, that we're discussing, witnesses don't know what's going on in the Netherlands. That the government is looking into shunning.
Yeah.
They don't know about. They don't know about these two elders that have basically been charged and found
Convicted.
guilty. And convicted. They haven't been sentenced yet, but they've been convicted of a crime because they didn't report abuse. And then they don't know anything about the Royal Commission.
Under direct direction from the branch to not report. They get to walk away scot-free, and these two numbnuts
elders
are holding the bag.
Yeah, they got to take the heat for this.
Yeah. The Royal Commission is funny because that was kind of like the
Australian Royal Commission.
Or the Australian Royal Commission. Yeah, it was like that was the real big axe swing, for my faith. Really? And it was funny because I remember way back when it happened, I kind of heard about it through just other witnesses kind of talking about it. And I was like, oh, what's going on? And they were just like, stuff, like it was kind of like, I didn't look at it. And then when I watched it, it's like, and it's funny. It's just like, watching a governing body member get up and say the things he said, I was like, and exactly to your point, Greg, about what we grew up being the benchmark of what faith was supposed. Like you read all these Bible accounts, and it's
you
like
die for it.
The three Hebrews, right?
Yeah.
You go through all these stories,
exactly.
and then what witnesses did in the Second World War, and then I watched this guy, and he was just like, oh, yeah, it's not really my department. It's just like, not you're the guy who's supposed to be convening with God. Like, I mean,
what a coward.
Yeah,
it would be presumptuous of us to say that.
Yeah, and I was just like, wow. And then it's just funny to have that happen and then try to loosely tell another witness. It's like, yeah, this was pretty upsetting. You should watch it. And they're like, yeah, I don't want to watch. I will never watch apostate stuff. It's like, what apostate? It's the guy was in a court case and it was.
You don't need commentary. It's there.
Yeah. It's.
This happened. There's no lies. This is real. This is not apostates. This is just lawyers, talking.
They'll start
and governing body members.
They'll start saying it was video editing. Guys, there is some amazing editing programs out there. Deep fakes.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is not one of those. This is a real thing.
Yeah. Well, there's if I can run with the ball there for a sec, like one thing I want to bring in, just one of the things I want to bring out being on today is just that because I'm not disfellowshipped, I have quite a few, a handful of friends who are still witnesses. So they would be, PMOs, I guess, right? Physically and mentally out. And you want to talk about outside of just disfellowshipping. It's like, you don't need to be disfellowshipped to be shunned. Like the underlying thing that I can't stand with all of it is that it's like, if I don't believe this, they act like, well, you can just go, just go. But it's like, you don't get to go. You have to leave. It's like the mob. It's like, you can go. You either got to die or you got to keep your mouth shut for the rest of your life. It's like, that's the reality. And so I have friends who will talk to me and they're talking to other, like, I want to go golfing with a buddy who I golf with all the time. And he's got another friend who's just like, who knows me. And he's like, yeah, I just don't want to come with Kellan because kind of seems like an apostate. And it's just like, the guy he's talking to is afraid to be honest because he'll be hooped. He'll be out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, this happens. They're all doing it, but no one can just stand up and like you were saying, Nash, like they don't own it. Just own it.
You can't. If you do stand up, if you do talk, like you mentioned the mob, if you talk, guess what? You're going to get pulled into a committee meeting. Yeah. And you're done. So, there's, a lot of talk about, the fact that shunning and disfellowshipping is used as blackmail. It is 100% blackmail.
Yeah.
And you have the people that will stand up and that, or they'll just say, oh, I'm just going to speak naturally. But I would say the majority of people just shut up. They don't say what they really think, because if they did, then Watchtower is going to pull out this gun that they have in their pocket and they're going to point it at you and pull the trigger. And we're taking away your family and we're taking away your friends.
Yeah.
And this is what motivates, or one of the things that motivates Nash and myself and Kellan, you, to talk to people, to do this channel, to make people realize this is going on. Like in the world that we live in, people don't realize that this archaic practice is happening. And I think even witnesses, like I grew up in the organization, and when you're a witness, you don't fully realize how crazy this is.
Yeah.
You don't fully realize how insane this practice is. This practice belongs in the 17th, the 16th, the 15th century.
Yeah.
This does not belong in the 21st century. The crap that these guys pull.
And I think it's interesting when you guys say, I mean, I think Harrison, I don't know if he coined this, but I've heard him say it a few times, and it's a great analogy when he talks about how Watchtower is a gun to your head and tape over your mouth.
Yeah.
And the second you pull the tape off, you're pulling the trigger yourself, right?
Yeah.
And how often have we seen that with people that leave? If you keep your mouth shut, you might get some little breadcrumbs of a relationship from your family, but it's not going to be good. It's going to be the odd time they'll talk to you, they'll reach out, see how you're doing. But the reality is that always comes with a caveat that they're hoping you come back. They're always like, I'm going to see how Nashon's doing, because maybe he's been out long enough. Maybe things are going so bad for him. Then he's going to come to his senses and return to Jehovah. That's what they're thinking, right? The second you speak out, the second you show some integrity that you don't believe in this and that you have good reason. It's not because some elder treated me bad. It's not because I'm angry I can't have a beard. It's not because I want to sin to my heart's desire. I left for good reason. And they don't think that exists. They don't think a good reason exists. So how could you leave for a good reason? Because everything they read says you left for terrible reasons.
So speaking out is
them. Yep. They do. And speaking out is super important. And it reminds me, I'm always going back to Norway, but in that appeal, they talk about how thousands every year get baptized. Thousands every year choose to leave the faith. And they're not prevented from doing so. And it says that the two or possibly three dissatisfied former witnesses who have complained about Jehovah's Witnesses represent a small minority. They in no way represent all those who have peacefully broken their bonds with the church. So they're implying that these thousands that leave every year, because they stay quiet, they're happy with it. They love it. They love shunning. They agree with it wholeheartedly, and they think it's awesome because they didn't say anything. That's a load of shit. That's what that is. Just because they didn't run out and start an apostate channel doesn't mean they love the practice of shunning. And I will guarantee you, if you could bring every one of them up there in front of them, they wouldn't say it was great. Well, so I think it's so dishonest. The reason
why they're not talking is because they have a gun to their head.
Yeah, and they're
deciding, do I want to say something, or do I want to still be invited to weddings or my family barbecues? Hang out with my parents. My brother actually, before he passed away, he was actually starting to smoke cigarettes again, and he was baptized, and he was hiding it because he wanted to talk to my mother.
Yeah.
And actually, before he passed away, there was elders were coming out to visit him, and he didn't know why. And he was saying to me, I'm probably going to get axed. I mean, that's what we sometimes the slang we use for people that, when you get DF, sometimes we call it getting axed. Yeah. He didn't want to get axed because guess what? He wanted to talk to my mom. That's why nobody says anything, is because, and it's a legitimate thing to think, well, you know what? I'm not going to say anything because I want to have a relationship with my family. Yeah. That's not a stupid thing. You got to weigh the
consequences.
the consequences here. Like, do I want to cause a lot of trouble and then now I don't have a family and I don't have my friends, or, do I want to just keep my mouth shut and go on with my life?
And that was something I had to think very seriously about. Like, I didn't take that decision lightly.
Yeah.
I didn't come out and be like, fuck these guys. And I'm just going to tell everybody how terrible they are, because I don't think Jehovah's Witnesses are terrible. I don't think the people there are terrible. I think there's a few people that aren't very good people. They wouldn't be good people. Doesn't matter what religion they are. But the reality is these people are deceived. And some of them maybe that are acting terribly on bad information and on learning, not really being raised up properly because they have all these crazy ideologies. So maybe they would be an okay person outside of it.
Well, that's a point that I always, it's always tough, because it's like, I mean, if you had a friend who was, it's like one of those commercials, like, it's like, this is Chad on drugs. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like, that's how I feel about Jehovah's Witnesses, where it's like, I had a lot of resentment to them for upholding these rules. But then over time, I'm just like, I don't know who this person is. I've had a few friends who were like, it went badly when I left, and then they left, and they were kind of like, because we had some pretty rough conversations, and then they reached out to me, and I was like, of course I'll meet you, and then I'm talking to almost a completely different person. Once they like take that off, that they take that pressure off themselves, it's just like, it's hard to, and I think that's a thing to take away too. It's like, we're not judging Jehovah's Witnesses who are in, I want to just say, like, I had a conversation last week with a witness that I grew up with, who was a really good friend. And he actually gave me, it was funny, when I left, he gave me 2 hours of why I don't think it's the truth, which I wonder how that sat with him, because I got to really lean into him in a very balanced way, like trying, not attacking, but obviously that resentment was there. Anyways, I heard through another friend who's in, a PMO, and he mentioned that this guy was saying that he missed me, and that I just had I got a 4-month-old baby, the cutest little girl, crazy that he hasn't talked to me. So I reached out to him. I sent him a photo out of the blue. It was just like, hey, here's your biannual photo of baby Drew. And he just opened up and was like, thanks, man. I missed you, like all this stuff. And, but then I told him, I said, like, we live a kilometer from each other. I'm always around to meet. And I said, if you don't want to talk, like, I'm not interested in coming and talking to you about witness stuff or trying to pull you from the religion. It's just like, life is short. And I want to, I don't want to completely say, because this is a good friend, and he's a good guy. He's a good guy. And he texted me, and it's funny, from that chat when he was vehemently defending, this is the truth, to now a few years already, he was just kind of like, you know what? My wife is 100% into this. And if I spend time with you, just doubts come up, and that's going to affect my relationship with her, and it's going to affect my relationship. And it's just like, I was like, I wish other witnesses could just read this message. This is a good guy who they all, if they knew who he was, they'd be like, oh, I love that guy. That guy is big time.
There are a ton of people in that same situation.
Yeah. And it's,
you go on Reddit and Discord, and there are, like, that story is told time and time again. There are people that have woke up either fully or partially, and their mate is completely in, and they're just like, I can't, because what do you do?
Well, and if the Watchtower organization didn't have the shunning practice, if that wasn't there, then these relationships would be a lot better. Like, I know people that the wife is a pretty staunch Catholic and the husband is not really into it, and he speaks freely. Yeah, I'm not really sure if God exists or whatever. They have a normal relationship. I mean, obviously it maybe would be a little bit closer if they had, the same beliefs about God and such things like that. But it's not a big deal. But because shunning exists, because the disfellowshipping arrangement exists, this husband or this wife can't speak what they think. They can't talk about it because this is just going to cause World War III. They're going to get kicked out, and now this, and there's so many ramifications. It's all, it all really stems from this shunning practice and this disfellowshipping practice that the organization has implemented.
Yeah, for sure, because you can't have that difference in opinion. And then you can't be honest. Then your honesty in your relationship is gone. Because it's not just the fact that I believe in God and you don't, even if it hasn't gone that far. It's your whole life. It is your friends.
Yeah.
It is your goals. It is your financial decisions. It is your job decision. It's where I'm going on my holiday, what time of year I'm going. It is everything in your life. So how do you be married to someone and that's their focus? And you're just sitting there thinking, well, that's a bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
How do you do it? How do you
Yeah.
do it and get up every day and be like, well, I'm off to work, and then I'm going to hang out with those two worldly guys and make sure nobody finds out. And then I'm going to go back to the meeting tonight and sit there and think about how dumb it all is. I don't know. It must be an awful spot to be in. And so I have a lot of empathy
and then
for
on
those
top of
people.
that, the organization, puts all this guilt on you for leading a double life, this like double life thing that they have. You know what I mean? It's life. It's just life.
Just life.
It's only because you've created this insulated society, which is, what cults do. That's the reason why you have a double life. You know what I mean? Where, whereas if you didn't have these strict rules on association and, like the Pharisees, all these rules that the Watchtower has, if you didn't have them, there wouldn't be such a thing as a double life. You just have your normal life where you hang out with normal people. Sometimes you hang out with witnesses and sometimes you don't,
It's dangerous. I know me and Nash have talked about this before, but it's kind of like they don't see it, but like I call it like JW math, where like everything kind of leads to death if you're not doing the right thing. And so like when I was a witness, I would stack it up. It'd be like, oh, I didn't read my Bible for 3 days.
Yeah.
And then I missed service. And then I went to that rated R movie and I'm close to dying. Like I've got too much going against me. And then it's just like, should I go out and, like have a few too many beers? Well, you start sliding where I just was like, it's hard because it's always kind of pushing you down. And it's kind of like, I just knew guys that'd be like, well, I did this and I did that. So, I mean, what's the difference if I just do that now? And it's like,
because you're dead already.
Because you're dead already. And that's the thing. It's like, if you're walking around with that complex that it's like, well, I'm fucked. It's just like, well, no wonder that you can't dig yourself out of that hole.
It's a slippery slope. And I've seen so many people behave in ways they probably never would have thought they would, or partake in things that they normally never would, unless they thought that I'm dead anyway. You could have done something stupid as a 17-year-old guy, or maybe you just looked at porn. And now all of a sudden you're like, whatever, I'm done. I'm too embarrassed to tell anybody about it. Jehovah hates me. I might as well get drunk, have sex, snort some coke.
Yeah.
And that sounds crazy. You'd be like, well, that's not true. That's bullshit. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but
well, it's not really. That's what guilt will do to you. I've
heard stories like that where that does happen. And that's the chain it goes in, right? It goes with that, I'm dead anyway, so nothing I do matters. So now how far are you willing to go?
Yeah. Yeah. Along with that, I didn't really talk about my experiences too much, and, we're kind of running long here, but I will mention a couple things. One thing is my one brother was disfellowshipped a few times. And there was one instance where he showed up at the house to tell everybody he was about to be disfellowshipped. And the reason he showed up at the house was to say goodbye to everybody. It is like a death. He was saying goodbye until he either gets reinstated or maybe never. And my grandfather was there, and he was, obviously a believer his whole life until he died. And I remember watching him, and he was talking about being disfellowshipped. And he said to us, you know what it's like? It's like this. And he put his thumb across his throat, basically saying, or not basic, he was saying that being disfellowshipped is the same as being killed. And thus I've had people that have commented on my channel and this channel where they talk about parents who have had their child disfellowshipped, and they've used the word grieving.
Yeah.
The parents are grieving. Why are they grieving? The person didn't die. Well, actually, to a JW, they pretty much did die, and when you're reinstated, you're kind of like you're resurrected,
Yeah.
but it's grieving. You're grieving the loss of your child when they are disfellowshipped because they're dead to you.
And that's
This
in the
is how
Watchtower.
insane this is.
That language is in the Watchtower. You'll find that same talk about grieving someone who's been disfellowshipped, a parent grieving their child, and you'll find it likened to death. They always liken it to Korah and Aaron's sons. And as soon as they were considered apostates, or they'd done things wrong, they killed them. And in the old magazines, it said crazy things like, "We may not be able to kill them now, but like soon it's going to happen." And the reality is that's what they're longing for. And I don't know if they really realize. I don't know if our parents realize that that's what they're thinking about when they're praying for their paradise, or they're thinking about that. Like they're hoping for our death, as far as they're concerned. I don't know how you can have enough cognitive dissonance to even function in life.
Well, I'm remarried. I'm married and I have a baby, and it's like I'm pretty sure, like with where I stand on everything, I'm in the way they look at things. It's like I'm condemning my wife now and my baby to death. Like that's the belief. If Armageddon came in their their realm, it's just like it's like this is a great woman who lived a great life. And then she marries me, and I'm in this cult. I was in this cult, and I don't believe it. So it's like she's got to go. Like it's very wild. Like they just don't sit down and think it through. It's pretty terrifying. It just bust out a calculator. It's like we are less. Their organization is less than 1%. It's like you can go to bed at night. You're okay with X amount of people dying, so that you get to ride a tiger. The new system. It's a little wild.
That is so true, Kellan. I'm so glad you mentioned that, because for those that are watching and they don't know what Kellan just said, if you're disfellowshipped, there is a belief. Now, I think by what you're saying, it seems like they still believe this, that children receive everlasting life on the merits of their parents. Yeah. And so it is possible that if you're disfellowshipped, and you're not leading this life that you're supposed to lead, the witnesses will think that you are also killing your children, because your children's lives will be forfeited because of your decisions. This is how these people think. This is how they've been brainwashed.
And they'll cite the flood story and Korah as examples, that's what God did. So it makes sense he's going to do it again. And you're an idiot for questioning it because it's in the Bible. The floating zoo story, that's super believable. I should base my life on.
And I want to squeeze this in here, that like one point, like people who are in, if they see this, or people who are out, the worst thing, and if you know my family and that, it's like when my mom comes over, and like she's close. Like I got a baby in that. I'm not out I'm not out technically, but
you're kind of faded, right?
I'm faded, but it's I've been 100% clear about how I feel about things. But the worst part is, witnesses can excuse it all away. It's like she has the hardest time looking me in the eye and just saying, "I love you," because she's looking at her dead man walking son.
Yeah.
She comes over. It's heartbreaking, because it's just like, and people are like, you know what? It's a good life. It's a good life. And it's like, it's a good life that she gets to spend the rest of her life on earth mourning the eventual, like, because I told him, it's like, I don't believe in it. And it's like, if I don't believe in it, then it's just like, well, I'm not going to see him again in the new system. And it's just like, it's like they make it seem like, we're a fanatical that we are bringing this stuff up. It's like, it's the reality though, for these ones who grew up in it and really believe it and are like, they bleed, they bleed blue. I don't know what is the color.
Bleed white and blue. Yeah.
White and blue. And it's just like, it's sad that, and those comments were made to me where it's just like, have you thought about what your decision means for, I had another baby. So it's like, I just threw another body on the pile. That's what
and
they
that's
believe.
extreme language, but it takes extreme language for people to really get what goes on in this organization.
Yeah.
That's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
These people believe that fairly shortly there's going to be a genocide, and everybody that's not a Jehovah's Witness in good standing will be slaughtered by God. And this may include my son and my grandchild. They may be slaughtered by God. This is what they're taught.
To never
This is
see
what
again.
they believe.
To be completely erased, and there to find solace in the fact that God will wipe out their memory at some point. So at least I find some kind of comfort in the fact that I'm not going to remember I had a son named Kellan or Greg or Nash.
Yeah.
So I'll have my other kids, and just like Job, all his kids may have died, but he had a bunch more kids. So who cares? I don't give a shit about those other kids. I got new ones. And that's the kind of thinking. It sounds ridiculous and it sounds harsh, but it is the reality. Yeah. And for some reason, when you believe it, you can look past all of that because you don't really want to think too hard on it because you start to feel stupid. And nobody wants to feel stupid. And I don't think anybody's stupid who believes these things. But the reality is, if you really sit down hard and look at your beliefs and they don't make sense, you should have the reasoning ability to accept that. You talk about humility too, but you should be able to be skeptical about anything you really believe in. And if you're emotionally tied to something you believe in, if you get defensive and take it personally, if somebody criticizes something you believe in, you should really look at that belief, because maybe you've tied too much to it, where you haven't really decided what you believe or why you believe it.
Yeah.
Right.
You're so well spoken, Nation. Jeez.
What a man.
You know what? We're running at about an hour and 45 here. I got an idea to end the show. Why don't I'm going to share the screen and I'm going to play what Mr. Ganam said about family relationships. And why don't we each give our couple minute speech about how this is a lie? Does that sound like a plan here?
Well, we played this one. Why don't we play the other one?
Well, I didn't play the end where it talks about family relationships.
Oh, right. Sorry.
So does that sound like a good plan, Nash?
It does. Sorry, yeah, it does.
Normal family relations continue with the exception of spiritual fellowship.
That's all we need to hear. Let's hear that again. Let's back this up.
Meetings, they're able to attend in the Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. They're able to sit wherever they like. They can sing the spiritual songs with the congregation. As far as their family members are concerned, normal family relations continue with the exception of spiritual fellowship.
So is this where Maury Povich comes in? That is a lie.
Yeah. So maybe, Kellan, how did family relationships change?
I was living around my, I have a brother and a sister and my parents, and then I have a lot of extended family in the area. And they just didn't talk to me. I remember they, when I moved up, they were some family helped me move because, of course, who the hell do I know? That's not a Jehovah's Witness to help me move. And I had to pack boxes all day with my parents and my, some of my immediate family. And they just walked past me and they kind of, at first they wouldn't even smirk at me. It was very weird. But it's a crazy situation. It's a crazy situation that's sad because you know what? I think the takeaway, it's like, I survived. I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
I've got some things that I've had to work through in that, but there's people who aren't fine. There's people who aren't doing well. There's people who are just like, I have a friend last week who he said the last thing his mom said to him was goodbye. Didn't even say I love you. It's just she said his name. She said goodbye. That's it. That's wild. That is some wild horseshit that human beings in their short life have to experience. And you know what? And I don't blame the parents, because it's like, I mean, I wish they would take a different route, but the fact that they are obeying that and being like, this is what I got to do, because this is the only way to save my kid's life, is by shutting him completely out till he comes back to this organization. It's just like a circle of shit. And like the buck doesn't stop. It's just terrible. It's just, so it's sad. It's sad that, and it's sad that we live in this time period where we got YouTube, and it's like, here we go. There's a video clip that should end this conversation. This is welcome to EXJW-Live. We just solved an entire organization's massive problem that's ruining people's lives with a 15-second video clip. Not good enough.
Yeah. No. What about you, Nash? How did your what's your family situation like now?
Well, mine's is a difficult one. I mean, I only ever really had my immediate family that were witnesses, and two of my brothers are dead. So I have 3 surviving, and then my parents. I haven't spoken to any of my brothers in, I don't know, 3 years, 4 years. And my oldest brother, I started texting him a year ago, just sending him pictures of my kids, making comments about the Edmonton Oilers, whatever. I've never gotten a response. But, I took a page out of your book, and I said that I feel like I'm participating in this shunning thing by just accepting it, right? So I'm never ignorant. I'm just friendly with them, and I'd love to hear from them. But I don't. I never hear back. But I'm going to keep doing it. My 2 oldest boys, they shun me. I text and call them regularly. I don't get responses. I haven't in 2 or 3 years. And they're 18 and 15. All my parents live in the same town as me. My dad won't wave at me. My mom won't return calls or texts. It is 100% shunning, and it is all because I spoke out. My mom told me one of the last things she said to me when I saw her in the hospital. She said, "Leave your kids alone." And I mean, it's hard not to get defensive in that situation, because and I said, "What do you mean by that?" And she says, "Well, just, you need to leave them alone. They need the truth. It's the best way of life." And I'm looking at her laying in the hospital. Her health is shot to hell because she never looked after herself. She never got any help that she really needed. She lost 2 sons in terrible ways. She went through a ton of shit in her life. And she's hanging on to this hope for that next life. Yeah. And so this life's been real unkind to her. And even as far as being a witness goes, it hasn't been great for her. She got treated poorly by a lot of people. And she's still just like, I'm willing to write my son off like he's dead. And I know what it's like to have dead sons. I sit around and cry about them every day.
She actually dead sons, but this organization is forcing her to make a 3rd one dead.
Yeah. And the difference is she's not even allowed to grieve this one.
Yeah.
The other 2, she can look at photos and think about the day she's going to meet them in paradise. And for me, that's not even an option. My memory gets wiped out. My any existence of me is gone. And how contrary does that fly in the face of everything you're taught? Where Jehovah reads hearts. Yeah. He drew me in.
And love. It's a loving organization.
He brought me into this organization. Well, what kind of half-assed love is that it's just gone? And it's like a fucking light switch. Because I saw it turn off, and when I got reinstated, I saw it turn on. And when it went off again and I had enough, that was it. It's not coming back on.
That is some powerful stuff there. With me, like I've said in previous videos, I come from a long line of witnesses, a large family where they're all witnesses. I don't have contact with any of them. None of them. We speak with when it comes to funerals, anything to do with the death of someone, and that is it. Nobody comes to my house. We don't go to their houses. I am dead to my family. Now, I wanted to mention something, and
And they've
You know,
never met your kids either, right?
They don't know. They don't even know that we just had a baby, a year and a half ago. They don't even know the baby. They don't know her name. They don't know. I haven't said anything to them. Now, the thing is that, we are the type of individuals, like we are ex-witnesses, but we don't stay quiet, right? And we talk about, this whole thing. We are kind of like, what I'm trying to say is that if the Watchtower didn't have these practices, we wouldn't be as outspoken as we are, right? So we are kind of painted as black sheep, that we are outspoken about these injustices, and I think that it gives them an excuse to shun you even more if that's possible, right? But remember, we didn't do this. It's because of the Watchtower's policies that we speak like this. So if the Watchtower didn't have shunning, we wouldn't be as outspoken either. You know what I mean?
No, I wouldn't care. You don't hear us
Yeah.
talking about Mormons' crazy beliefs.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't affect my family, doesn't affect my
Yeah.
life. I don't care about Heaven's Gate and the Amish other than for the interest in reading about it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't affect our life. And
Yeah.
they just don't get that like this is why you speak out.
Yeah.
I have no interest in speaking out except for that my family has wrote me off.
Yeah.
And that's it. I could give two shits about my friends. I mean, there are some good friends. I don't want to say that. Like, they're good people. But the reality is, like, if it came down to them saying, you're not my religion, I'm not going to talk to you, whatever. But when you take somebody's family from you and then you blackmail them into joining your cult again to ever talk to them again, that is a bridge too far. And you're going to say something. That's where it stomps on our human rights. And you're not going to shut up about it. And you shouldn't have to. And the more people that speak up, the better.
Yeah, isn't that the truth? Well, you know what? I mean, we kind of did this episode to talk about shunning and to show people that it's real. And what Watchtower says in public is a complete and utter lie. Family relationships do change. They change completely. There's examples of, I don't think we have time for the video, but there's a Watchtower video where children are kicked out of the home because they have been disfellowshipped. Where parents won't talk to children don't talk to parents. This is a terrible, terrible situation, and it is real. It happens, and there may be the 1 in a million where witnesses don't shun, but by and large, this is happening. This is going on in the world we live in. And if you hear any differently, you are being lied to.
Yeah, for sure.
And we all, have dug ourselves out of the situation we were in and it's successful. But it's like this whole thing, there's kids where we're grown up. Like I'm 35.
Yeah.
It's like we have families, we have stuff. There's people who are like 16, 17, 18, but they're just starting their life. That 1 year or 2 years of this treatment can alter the rest of their life.
They're being abused by an organization.
Yeah. So it's just like, we're not here crying about our situation. There's people who are really getting hurt. And it's just like, if they're free to go, it's just like, let them go. It's like, let them go live a life. But the idea that they're not dragging this, who was it? Jesus? It's like the millstone. But it's like they're dragging this thing through their life without support and family. And it's alone. And it's pretty sad. And not everybody makes it.
It's disgusting. I think I have zero patience for parents that shun their young children who started it when they were teenagers. Think they need to learn a lesson. They need to come back to Jehovah. You better drag your ass back here after the world's done with you. That is complete nonsense. If one of my kids ends up in trouble, or they end up trying out drugs, or what people think is drugs, smoking weed in this country, or they party a bit, or they sleep with somebody, the last fucking thing I would do is kick them out of my house. It is the last thing I would do. And I certainly would never stop talking to them. And I have watched it in my own family happen and it is awful. It is so fucking awful. I can't believe it, because now you got this poor kid out on their own, struggling, zero support. And of course, people are going to take advantage of them. Of course, they're going to get in situations where they're vulnerable and bad things happen. And you can sit on your pompous ass with Jehovah in your back pocket thinking, I'm doing the right thing. Fuck you.
While you're sitting next to somebody who doesn't believe and can't be honest with you.
Yeah. I can't. That's too far.
I like that as an ending point, Nash. Yeah. You hit the nail on the head there in describing this practice that the Watchtower does. Yeah. I think let's leave it there. Kellan, thanks for showing up, buddy.
Oh, no problem.
It was nice meeting you.
I was supposed to go to a barbecue this morning, but then the invitation didn't come, so I'll be here.
Kellan's our snarky millennial.
Yeah.
We're gonna bring you on the show.
Yeah.
For some youth.
Yeah. Some bald youth.
Yeah. I'm a Gen Xer. Anybody wants to know?
So I just hit I'm on the year. I'm on the cusp.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, this has been awesome. This was episode 3 about shunning. Nash, we got a really hopefully we got a good episode coming up here in a week or so. Where we talk about now. Tentatively, episode 4 is going to be about the relationship that women have to the Watchtower organization. So I'm super excited about that one.
Yeah. And it's not going to be Greg and I's take on it. That's what we want to make sure people know.
Yeah.
This is from women, about women and their experience as kids and adults inside and outside the organization.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be what men think about it.
Damn right. Yeah. Okay, so thanks, Kellan, Nash.
Thanks, guys.
Nice seeing you guys again. And everybody, see you later.